Fiction and reality. New stories, new ideas. Little Beth Entertainment.
Welcome to the first episode of Season 8 of The Rocketry Show. We open this new season with a wonderful guest appearance from Conway Stevens. We talk about some of the history of high-power rocketry, focusing a bit on the changes brought on after the 9/11 attacks and other historical-related stories. We also talk about Conway Stevens' experience as a TAP, his latest projects, and his recovery from COVID. This is a 2-hour show that's bound to fill in that long gap we had while we were recuperating before resuming our show recordings. So no doubt you'll be replaying this one a few times. So enjoy. The Rocketry Show starts right after this.
The Rocketry Show thanks RocketryForum.com for their support. This is Jesse, and I've been a member since 2017. The Rocketry Forum is a global community of Rocketeers who openly discuss all aspects of hobby rocketry. If you have a question, hop on and ask. There are hundreds of experts who can answer just about any rocketry question you have. Check them out today at RocketryForum.com.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Welcome to The Rocketry Show.
All right, lift off and the clock is started. Yes, sir. Reading loud and clear.
A podcast that is all about advanced and high-power rocketry. Amateur-built rockets, starting at mid-power to higher-power versions that can reach the edges of space. This program is hosted by the team who love the smell of burning ammonium perchlorate in the morning. Here are CG, Gene, and model rocket guy, Jesse Yu.
Welcome to The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. I'm CG.
I'm Gene.
And I'm Jesse Yu, model rocket guy.
All righty. Welcome back to the program. We have another great episode for you here on the way. Our very special guest this time around is Mr. Tacos for 10 himself, Conway Stevens. So welcome to the show, Conway.
Thank you, CG. Appreciate that.
So we've got you on for a number of reasons. One is you've got a vast experience in rocketry, so we figured it'd be great to talk to you and just kind of disseminate some of the knowledge that you have to some of the Rocketeers, which in this program is only going to be like, you know, a tiny piece of the information you walk around with in your head. So it's going to be a fun show here to go through. So just get people some idea about that. How long have you been in the rocketry, and what are some of the things you've done?
Well, as most of us, I started off as a kid, clear back in the early 70s, whether it was with scouts or school, and did that up into the point where girls and cars probably got a little bit more important for a while. And then in the late 80s and early 90s, I had my bar moment of coming back to that. And I did rocketry for a really long time throughout all that period of time. Spent a lot of time doing, model and stuff like that, and lower and mid-power stuff. Then eventually joined Tripoli and joined NAR. And here I am ever since. I'm actually getting ready to celebrate 20 years, I think, as a member.
Nice.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most passionate hobbies or things I've actually ever enjoyed. I think it brings out a lot of the best in people, whether it's with people or people doing things in the hobby. It's just a really great hobby. It teaches it.
Oh yeah.
It does so much. And it's a huge passion of mine. I love it a lot. Did my L1 clear back in like 2001, 2002. Did my L2 in 2003. Took me a couple of years. I'm not one to rush through any of that. I think there's a lot to experience. I think a lot of the times we try to jump way too fast, and it's human nature. We always look for the bigger present under the Christmas tree. We always, it's a whole thing. And so we look to progress faster. Crazy part is I think you're missing stuff along the way. And then I did my L3, believe it or not, back in 2006. Now I will say that even with the space in there, let me just put it this way. I don't own a train set. if that means anything.
Well, yeah, you listen to the show.
Train set. I like to show up big or not at all. When I did, even my level 1, I had to pick like the biggest cause deny motor I could find. When I did my level 2, it's the same thing. I jumped out and says, let's do a big K. And when I did my level 3, I did a 14-foot tall, 6-inch diameter rocket on an N2800 for my L3 cert to like roughly 16,000 feet.
That's not bad. Not
Nice.
bad at all. 16,000? Yeah, it's like back east, we don't go up that high typically.
Conway, I had the privilege of meeting you on the day that I did my level 3, and I believe that was in April at the beginning of this year. And you had talked to me, I think you and I started conversing a lot during Narcon when they were doing the online presentations, and that's the first time I saw you on the computer. And in CG, I don't know if you remember, but when we were in the forum, when everybody was talking, Conway was sitting in there with us, and we didn't even know the wiser. And after sitting here and talking with Conway, throughout the months, I not only formed a friendship with you, and I appreciate everything that you talked to me about, but also taking advantage of your encyclopedia mental brain thingy that you got going on there, And just right before the show, just so everybody knows, he was kind of rapping here with me, Jim, and CG, and we're like, oh, we got to save some stuff for the show. We got to save some stuff for the show. But I think CG, one of the things here, we're recording the show just here after the anniversary of the 20th anniversary of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it kind of brings us into like one of the first topics that I kind of wanted to mention with you, Conway, is tell us about that time after that all happened and how it affected the hobby. What did 9/11 do to the hobby?
Boy, you talk about lock things up tight. I have to say I was fortunate enough to be a part of the time when we went through things with the ATF, with the BATF. If there's a lot of flyers that have not been around the hobby long enough to have been exposed to that, you really don't know what it was like to go through that stuff.
Right.
During those periods of times, we were in the midst of a lawsuit with the BATFE, with both NAR and Tripoli representing. We had a great, big, huge grassroots movement that was I got to be a big part of, actually, and unfortunate I got to be involved in that. Everything from doing TV spot stuff that I did with some national channel stuff, working with John Wickman up at CP Technologies, getting to work with Senator Mike Enzi from Wyoming, who just recently passed away, unfortunately. Very great gentleman. But when 9/11 hit, airspace got locked down. If you were looking at wanting to buy quote unquote explosive materials at the time, I had my layup even, and just dealing with that was like a difficult time for the hobby.
Yeah, Chris Pearson's one of the, the one near us who was around during that whole time as well, being a very long time Rocketeer. Talked about some of the craziness that went on with all the trials and and all the things that they were trying to show how you can use a rocket as a weapon, and with all these Hollywood things in their minds that rockets just don't really do.
Yeah, it was in fact, Senator Enzi walked into the Senate into a meeting in front of all of the congressmen and senators and all these people, and pulls out a rocket motor right in his hand. And he starts describing it and talking about it, tapping it on the counter. Says, this thing is not any more explosive than, and
okay.
He waltzed right in with it, undetected. He says, he really supported us, the hobby, and everything. It's definitely a sad thing to have him not be around anymore. But it's that period of time. It was tough. Most people, when you say LEOP, what's that? It's like low explosive users permit.
Users permit. Yeah.
Yeah. I can remember building my magazine. I can remember going through all the hoops I had to go through with my local fire department, my local police department, local sheriff department, local, state agencies, the FBI background check, the 3 different other agencies. And then I finally get to meet my BATFE officers, and they come out and they do all these inspections and,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you had to have fingerprints on file and everything else too, to fly rockets at the time. It was crazy.
Wow. So
let me take
now. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Let me just say thank you for doing all that stuff that you did, because I came into the hobby in 2010, 2011, and all that stuff had been resolved. So it's guys like you that actually helped promote it to be where a guy like me came back in as a bar in 2011 and get my level 3 and have no problems and don't have to worry about going through all that stuff. So thanks. I mean, I try to say that to anybody that's been there, because of you guys, I'm able to do what I do back there. So
appreciate that.
Jim says, as he points to his thousands of huge rockets that are in his background behind him, for those of you that can't see the video. So,
well,
our backgrounds aren't nearly as impressive, but yeah, Jim, that's pretty sweet.
I think it was an important fight to fight, and I think it was something that we needed to stand up for, because the facts were actually in our court.
Yep, absolutely.
It's not an explosive. Guess what? Guess again. You illegally regulated a substance that you shouldn't have.
Right.
Well, the good thing is I'm passing that on to my kids. And my kids were doing a thing at the high school. I coach a TARC team. And they were talking, and somebody said a question, well, what about the explosives? And all of them just looked at that person and said, it's not an explosive. It's flammable, but it's not an explosive. I was so proud of them that day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And by the way, definitely thank you to you for doing things like working with the TARC team and working with youth, because without that, we don't grow our hobby. We don't keep the forward of it, in the future happening. And that's really important. I see a lot of the times, like in discussion groups online, where people go, what organization should I join? NAR, Tripoli? And, I see a lot of people, NAR's for,
right.
NAR's for, no, support both, because both have actually supported the hobby huge amounts. And without NAR and their contests and their youth programs and all the things they do, we wouldn't have high power flyers for later. My daughter is a prime example of that. She unfortunately doesn't fly anymore. I'd love to talk her back into it, but she was like the first or second girl junior level 1 ever certified when NAR started the program.
Cool. Very cool.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
That's pretty wild.
That's amazing, yeah.
And she, like her dad, did it in our style. I'm going to show up with a 38 millimeter minimum diameter rocket and a I-something and jam that thing over a mile.
So what are you building now, or what are you doing right now? I mean, what's your latest project, your latest thing? Because it sounds like you got all these stuff going on.
Oh, yeah. I don't limit myself to flying just one specific type of rocket. I love all of them. I mean, big, small,
Good man.
I like everything. I will definitely say I'm probably a little bit more of a composite material flyer, but I've got no issues with cardboard stuff or phenolic, or even the really cool stuff from like Mike at Mac Performance with the canvas phenolic. That's really cool material.
Canvas, yeah. We got a launch coming up here at the beginning of October. What are you looking to do for that?
Well, for that launch, I've actually, as you found out, Jesse, I don't show up lightweight. I've got 3 flights planned, like I did for Mile High
3,
Mayhem.
1 for each day, right?
One for each day. I'm like a 1-a-day vitamin, just 1 a day, man. But it's one of those things that I believe in. I used to be a flyer that used to show up to a launch and try and throw as many rockets in the air throughout an entire day and get a whole bunch of flights done. Now
we've done that.
Now I spend more time putting up one really incredibly quality flight. So
cool.
For Oktoberfest, as long as we have the launch, my flight plan for Friday it's a rocket made by Hawk Mountain Enterprises.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if any of you ever heard of Hawk Mountain Enterprises.
No.
I've heard of them.
Most of us old guys know of them, because way back in the day, there was really only 2 manufacturers of composite kits. And that was Dynacom and Hawk Mountain. Dynacom is no longer. Hawk Mountain has survived throughout all these years. The guy that owns Hawk Mountain, Alan, I believe he's gotten ill. He's no longer producing kits. A friend of ours, James Russell, who's been one of my best friends for years and years and years. He went up there and picked up a whole bunch of stuff and brought back this kit, and it's the Hawk Mountain Griffin. It's a 4-inch diameter kit, all glass, and it's the last kit to come out of Hawk Mountain. So I built it, and of course, like me, I can't leave anything alone. I took the 54 millimeter mount, tossed that, put in a 75. Says, there we go.
Oh, geez.
So the flight coming up for the Friday of Oktoberfest at Northern Colorado Rocketry will be that rocket on an M685.
Okay.
Should be to right about
Nice.
22,000 feet.
Only 22K.
Yeah, just, throw a couple feet in the air.
Yep. The next day of the launch, my plans are is I've got a semi-scratch built 3-inch rocket. And I say semi-scratch because I'm using a binder design Max Q aluminum fin can by Mike Fisher, which he makes a beautiful product. And this thing is like gorgeous anyways. To just even think about seeing it and know what you're looking at.
Those are
Okay.
riveted on,
They're screwed.
attachable fins.
Yep.
Screwed in, yeah.
It's a fin can. The fin can mounts to the motor case. And then it has fiberglass body tubes that are notched that slide down and basically interlock with the fins. It's 3-inch diameter with everything in the propellant with an M1650 Loki in it. It weighs 18.5 pounds roughly.
That's going to fly.
Should be about close to 30K.
Oh, wow.
And then last flight I think I have planned for the upcoming weekend will be my 3-inch Alien Interceptor on a Loki K350 long burn to about 15,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Go big or go
That's going
home.
to be awesome.
Like I say, I don't own a train set.
So let me rewind a little bit then, Conway, because right before I interrupted you, and I apologize, you were going to talk about what we did over the summer. I call this your big comeback because, during 2020 and during COVID, if you can talk about that a little bit and then talk about your comeback that we did at Mile High Mayhem back during the summer in June.
So I had to take a bit of a hiatus from the hobby. I used to be a tap. One of the things I enjoyed a lot was being a tap and helping people. Got pretty ill, had some health issues I had to take care of, spent a lot of time in the hospital off and on. Managed to conquer that and just started getting back into the hobby again because it's really what I wanted to do. Was building up and getting things going, and then COVID hits and we go on through this lockdown and all these things going on. And 2 days before Christmas, I end up contracting COVID and I ended up being out of work for about 3 months, in the hospital for a month, almost lost my life, had a pulmonary embolism. That's really fun, by the way, if you get a chance to have one of those. And
Jeez, man.
I managed to beat it. I got lucky by the skin of my teeth and managed to beat it. I didn't waste any opportunities. I went directly right to building rockets, believe it or not, and going back to work.
The important stuff.
And so I had these completely unbuilt rockets. And so here it is, April. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Well, you're going to be you. That's what you're going to do. And so I was like, picked up this 8-inch fiberglass airframe rocket. It's a Concept 200. And then I picked up an Alien Interceptor. And then I picked up this Hawk Mountain Griffin. So I'm like, I'm going to build all 3 of these, and I'm flying all 3 of these at Mile High Mayhem at Northern Colorado Rocketry as my comeback. And then I was like, well, you can't just go flying. You got to go flying with style. So I'm like, well, what's the motor I'm going to pick? So I picked, for the big rocket, I picked the N3300.
Nice.
For the Hawk Mountain Griffin, I picked an L840 Loki. For the 3-inch Mach 1 Alien Interceptor, I picked an L1040 Loki. So they weren't like nice, easy flights. They were flights that were either going to rip off the pad, go plenty high, or just big stuff. And everything went off without a hitch. Dual deployment recovered on each one of them. And I haven't flown a dual deployment flight in a few years, and everything recovered perfectly with no issues. But I'm also one of those that I ground test. I study things.
Absolutely.
I study things into the dirt. That's why I also believe in doing the one rocket, one day, devote my attention to that. Don't let distractions happen. Don't, hey, when people are around me and I'm building stuff, it's like, shh, quiet, go away. I'll visit with you in a while. It's the same thing out at the pad, though. It's I got no problem telling people.
And the prep table.
Hey, be quiet. I come back from a time when I had senior flyers like guys like John Wilkie and stuff like that you guys may not know, but man, altitude buster, super guy, really was a pioneer of minimum diameter stuff. Literally would be on the line, they'd be flying flights, and here's an altitude attempt, and it was, shut up, we're trying to hear the reports. It's so.
Oh yeah.
Everybody was respectful about that though, and we were always quiet, and it's just one of those things that I think it's important that as Rocketeers we respect that with each other.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. I've got a couple of questions for you, since we'll be asking about that. And that'll be for questions basically aimed at noobs who are wanting to get into high power rocketry for the first time. And since Conway has been a TAP for a long time, he can definitely shed some advice on that. So we'll dig into that, and we'll be back after this on The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey, all you rocket geeks out there. Do you like doing in-flight videos of your flights? And do you ever use those keychain cams and unfortunately sometimes only get videos of your thumb? Hey, this is Gene from The Rocketry Show, and that used to happen to me. I used to use those old keychain cams only to get nothing very good quality. But I found a solution to that, and it's Insane Rockets. It's an app that's available on the Google Play Store for Nexus 5X and higher. Now get this, it does 4K video. But not only that, it'll upload it automatically to the cloud and provide you real-time telemetry while tracking your rocket through Google Earth. It is amazing. Available on the Google Play Store, Insane Rockets app. It's crazy. No, wait. It's insane.
It's time for Serious Rocketry. Serious Rocketry since 1998, providing the Rocketeer with great kits, motors, supplies, and more. They have lots of products in their ever-growing web store with fast shipping, wide selection, and courteous service. You can also check out the amazing and popular Serious Rocketry kits that harken back to the days of fun-to-build detailed kits that are more than just 3 fins and a nose cone. And Gene has been camping out on their website to find stuff. What did you find?
Well, every once in a while, I like to get into a little bit of that scale or fantasy scale or just something that flies. I want to make one too. And, everybody knows about Dr. Zuch and all the cool stuff that they've had over the years and everything. I mean, great kits, just really good on the details. I mean, I'm sure if you talk to Noob, he'd tell you all about the Zuch stuff that he has. And he would too. But this one's a new one. It's been out for a little while. It's the Dr. Zuch Falcon Heavy. Now, I mean, we've only seen the Falcon Heavy launch a couple of times, but so I think it probably needs to launch some more, and you can do that if you pick up this kit. Check out what it's got. It's part of that ant scale that Zuch kits are there. They have the humorous instructions, which they're very well known for.
They're great.
Yeah, it's a semi-scale model of the Falcon Heavy launch vehicle. It includes laser-cut parts, which is the shroud, lander leg covers, and basswood flame fins, because you're going to need that when you fly. It includes those for stability. It's about 19 inches long, is 3 inches wide, uses BT50 tubes. The cargo compartment up at the top, the fairing, is a BT55 body tube. Gets decals, and its fin span is about 5.5 inches. The width is 3.3 total. The rocket length is about 19 inches. So it's an 18 millimeter. They recommend flying it on a C63, which would be a nice black powder model. So if you want to take a little break but want to do a little bit of detail work and get into something that's a little bit more than your 3 fins and the nose cone, then I would say pick yourself up a Falcon Heavy from Dr. Zuch at Serious Rocketry. It's on sale right now for $42.99. These kits are great. If you haven't built a Zuch kit, I strongly recommend. I don't care if you're a high power level 3 like me. They're just cool kits to build, and they're a lot of fun to fly. So you can fly it anytime. Take it to the park and then put it up on a C63. So the Dr. Zuch Falcon Heavy, $42.99 from Serious Rocketry.
All righty, and Serious Rocketry's website features real-time stock tracking, which lets you order with confidence from their online store. No having to call or write to see if something is really in stock. When you're ready to fly, Sirius Rocketry has motors and hardware in stock from Estes through Aerotech High Power, as well as popular electronics from Jolly Logic and more. Be sure to ask them about their club specials as well. Visit their websites today at siriusrocketry.biz and .com. Sirius Rocketry, for the serious Rocketeer. North Coast Rocketry, one of the first high-power rocketry kit companies ever, takes advantage of over 30 years of high-power experience by a world-class Rocketeer. You can look to North Coast Rocketry to expand your high-power rocket fleet. In addition to great kits, North Coast Rocketry also stocks lots of must-have items and accessories for every Rocketeer's workshop. Find out more about these kits and other great products today. Go to northcoastrocketry.com. And while you're there, don't forget to get their latest catalog, northcoastrocketry.com. Advanced rockets that are easy to build, fun to fly, and look great on display. Welcome back to The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. CG, Jeem, Jesse, and Conway Stevens with us here. Mr. Tell us, I introduced you with the tacos for 10 thing at the beginning. So tell us about that nickname real quick before I jump into my question here.
All right. So it's a pretty funny story. So years ago, I got the opportunity to go with Team Event Horizon to be a part of the X Prize event as Tripoli was a participant in the X Prize. Witnessed by, I can't remember how many million online and whatever. And the crowd there was huge. We were there for close to a week. But there was a lot of great Rocketeers that showed up. Eric Gates, Gates Brothers Rocketry. Pat Gordslek, who at the time was on the BOD for Tripoli. He's also, runs the Pot Rocks down in Texas, and a big research guy that I learned a ton from. Darren Wright and Jeff Taylor that had Loki research rocket motors at the time. Whole bunch of people. I mean, a lot of Mark Lloyd, who I got to meet, which I'm sure you've heard Joe Hill mention his name, motor builder from back east. They were with the Phoenix project. Got to meet all those guys and get to know them, become friends with a bunch of them. So we were there for our first day, and we'd driven all these miles, and we got there early, and we're setting up all the stuff for the Tripoli stuff on the airport where they're holding the X Prize. John Carmack and their Armadillo Aerospace, Lunar Lander was there and doing that stuff, and all these different teams of different things that they had going on was doing stuff. And so the day is done, and everybody's like, man, we're starving, we're hungry. Where can we all converge on and go eat? There's got to be 20 of us, maybe more. So we converge on this place. Another one that was with us is Woody Hoberg, who's now an astronaut. So somebody says, oh, I know this Mexican food restaurant place. So we all converge on it. We're all sitting around these tables with each other. And I'm sitting next to James Russell, Art Hogue, and some of the other members of Team Event Horizon. And then I'm sitting also next to Darren Wright and Eric Gates and all these other people and Mark Lloyd and all those guys. We're all sitting around together. And I'm looking through the menu, and I'm like, man, I'm hungry. What am I going to eat? I'm I'm so hungry and I'm so tired because we've been going from Colorado, towing a trailer all the way to almost the border of Mexico. Down in Las Cruces, nonstop.
Jeez.
And so we get there, and then we get there, and it's oh, we're not going to take a rest. It's time to set up all day long. So we get stuff set up. So I'm I don't know. It must have just blurred, or I was just so tired and hungry that it didn't matter to me. But I looked down, and I'm like, oh, 10 tacos. I'll take it. So, okay, I'm not a little guy. Not a big fat guy, but I'm not a little guy. I'm, about 5'10", 5'11", but I'm 260. It's so I'm sitting there and I'm like, yep. So I point at the menu. I'll say, I'll have that, the 10 tacos. And the lady she doesn't even say anything. She just writes it down. Okay. So she writes it down.
10 tacos.
And 10 tacos. Well, so all of a sudden, all this food's coming out. Everybody's getting their plates, and I'm like waiting for mine. And she's like, "You're going to need to move all this stuff back." I'm like, "What do you mean move all this stuff back?" "I only ordered 10 tacos." She goes, "No, sir, you ordered tacos for 10. And I'm like, "What do you mean I ordered tacos for 10? And so Darren Wright and Eric Gates are sitting next to me laughing. They're like, "Dude, you're so tired and hungry. You don't even know what you ordered." I'm like, "Okay, fine. Bring it. I'll eat it." Okay. And then it's on. Okay.
Oh, man.
It's
that's
on.
good.
Again, Conway style. Because I never do anything lightweight. So first thing they do is they look at me and they both say, and here's Eric Gates and Darren Wright, and they're both like, "Dude, if you eat all that, I'll buy your dinner." And I look at him and I'm like, "You sure about that?" I think I saw how much this cost. It might be a little bit. I says, "Is there a couple cervezas I can get with this?" And they're like, "Oh yeah." So literally, there's like 8 different bowls of because there was pork, there was beef, there was chicken, there's these vegetables, there's beans, there's tortillas, there's rice, there's all these things all over the table in front of me. I went to town and I ate it all. Ate it all. Darren and Eric and these guys and James Russell, they're all like sitting there going, "I don't know where you put that. You like got to go to the bathroom now or something?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine." I'm like, let's roll. So we take off and literally like go to hang out. And so now we're all just hanging out somewhere, BSing and talking about rocketry and just having a good time. And they're like,
"Oh, that's good."
And I'm like, "Anybody got any dessert around here?" And I won't lie, I'm full. I'm full, but I can't let on. So it's like, I got to play it a little bit, But so at that point, the next morning I woke up, we go out to the field and we start getting stuff together. And the first words out of people's mouth, "Hey, look, it's tacos for 10.
And then the name was born.
Yeah. I've heard this story at least 3 or 4 times, and I got to tell you, I laugh just as hard every single time. So this is the Conway version. So your buddy James Russell, and you guys hear me talk about James all the time. He was my L3CC, and he's the tap chair for Tripoli actually. And when he tells this story, it's even better. So one of these days we'll have James on to talk about that and hear his iteration of it. Conway, it's so funny. Yeah, you guys are too cool to each other. Oh, man, that's good stuff.
James is one of those most wonderful people in the world, and I love him to death. He's definitely like a family member to me, and I've had the privilege to be able to do rocketry alongside of him for 20-plus years as friends. We watched our kids grow up together, spent time at each other's homes together, just, packing motors and building motors and, all that stuff. So James is a really great person. You guys will like him.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree with him. So it's kind of cool to see James at NSL and at LDRS and then at Airfest. And then I went up to Argonia with James during the summer, and just like we don't even really listen to like the radio or anything because we're just talking about rockets. I got to tell you, man, like even just these last couple of years talking to you guys about this stuff, it's just been a blessing for me. So, and I feel the same way, talking with CG and Jim and listening to the old episodes too of the show, and then just talking to other people. I got to hang out with Charlie Savoy at Airfest with Chris Short and Joe Hempworth, and we were sitting there having dinner with Chris's wife and family, and just the conversation was just all about rockets. It's such we talk about how cool the hobby is, but I mean some of the best friends that I've had here in the last few years have been because of rocketry. Once again, it's taken me out of a really bad place in my life, and I got better at my job as a result of it. And, I'm hanging out with you guys on this show. And let's testify, guys. You guys if anybody out there has ever thought about getting into rocketry, you just want to do it to hang out with the right people. And even Jenna Kay on the last episode said the same thing, so it's good stuff, people. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Conway.
Yeah. So as we mentioned before, you're a long time tap here. So I figured let's give some educational components to this here, and I'm going to assume that there are people listening to the show that have not jumped in the high power rocketry. Maybe they're a little spooked by it, or not sure where to begin with it. Especially if you've been listening to the Model Rocket Show and you hear this and you're just kind of listening in on what's going on. So I thought I'd take this moment here and tap into Conway's long experience as a tap here and start with some common mistakes, some common missteps that people getting their. Let's start with level 1 rockets have done, or maybe some advice for the person getting into their level 1 rocketry for the first time, or going for their level 1 cert. So yeah, I'll leave it to you to share some things you've seen.
Well, I think for like the level 1 flyer, the biggest thing is don't be scared of it. It's once you pass that and you feel that satisfaction of getting that cert, it's more than just even a relief. It's an excitement factor to want to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing is don't rush. One of the things I see a lot of people do a lot is they rush into things way too quick without doing enough homework, without understanding what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. And I'm not going to lie, not always is a message board or Facebook the best places to get that information, even though there are guys like myself or others that are really highly experienced out there giving good information. The problem is there's also a little bit of bad information. That doesn't mean that people are purposely giving bad information. It's just sometimes lack of experience, or whether it's, I did it and it worked. That doesn't necessarily always mean that it's a great idea. Keep it simple. That's one of the biggest things for level 1 I can tell you about as far as it goes. Understand things like thrust to weight ratios. It's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that, you should have a minimum of like a 4 or 5 to 1 thrust ratio. They say the minimum should be about 3 to 1, but I believe in safety factors in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure recovery is the most important studied thing you can probably do. And that's with any rocketry, because the up part is always easy. It's the down part that becomes the difficult part. Whether it's learning how to pack a chute correctly, learning how to, correctly Z-fold your harness, and how to take some of the shock absorption out of it. Learning that elastic cords are for your underwear, not for a rocket that's for high power. Learning that, because we try to adapt things over from model rocketry that we use to high power, and they don't equate to the same.
Sure.
You take a high power rocket with 2 grams of black powder that they put in their deployment charge, and you put that on an elastic cord, it's going to come back at the rocket 900 miles an hour. So it's,
Yes.
The visuals.
It's
Wile E. Coyote style,
Exactly. One of the other things too is I don't care how experienced of a flyer you are. I've flown a ton of motors, and every one of the motors I put in front of me, I set the instructions there in front of me, and I follow every one to the T. I make sure I've got the correct parts before I even think about assembling it. And I do that well ahead of time of the launch. So that way, in case, let's say, it got mispacked, I can contact Aerotech, CTI, whoever I need to, my vendor, and say, hey, this thing's not right. And then be prepared. Don't put something together that doesn't fit right, doesn't feel right. And don't be scared. Don't ever be scared to ask a question. I see guys that are, not guys, but flyers in general, that they, let's face it, there's a little bit of element of ego involved in this. And
of course,
to be able to do that all on your own, and to be able to, unfortunately, if you pull that, H motor apart from Aerotech and you're going, this O-ring goes where and that O-ring goes where, or all I've ever built is Aerotech motors, and that's your first Loki motor, and you go, I got like 8 O-rings that are the same size. Where do they go? Because you've never done a snap ring motor delay, or, don't be scared to ask for help.
Jim just talked about that in that last episode too, about the O-rings on your level 1 motor, Jim. I remember that discussion a couple weeks back.
I could share the story again, and you'll appreciate this, Conway. Okay, level 1. So this is like 2011, 12. I'm going for my level 1. And I had a nice 38 mil I motor that I was loading up, and in a 4-inch rocket, nothing big. So I'm putting it together, and the guy that was signing off on me was a very well-known and very old school, been in rocketry for years, was part of that generation back in the 80s, whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll trust this guy. And I was putting it together, had the instructions right in front of me, exactly what you're talking about. Had every part arranged on the instruction sheet and all set to go. And I was about to put the delay together, and he's like, are you sure that O-ring goes there? And I'm like, well, I read the instructions, but okay, yeah, you know what you're talking about. So I packed it the way that he wanted me to. It was like a different diameter O-ring. And sure as enough, as the day is long, it cadoed. They had a motor blowout. So I went back, found the instructions, and luckily I just happened to have a second motor handy. That I reloaded it. I showed him the instructions and said, listen, the case was okay, thankfully. And I said, I was actually right about this. And this guy was like, he was so apologetic. I'm not going to mention any names. And it was just really funny because I was following the instructions, but because I was still kind of a noob, I didn't believe in myself. I believe, and I followed along with what the old pro. Turns out he was wrong. I never let him live that one down.
Oh man, it happens sometimes.
It's the basic of things that seem to always bite us, whether it's forgetting to arm your electronics, putting in vent holes, for airframes to ventilate. And even in some recent discussions, and I see a lot of discussions online, and you look at it and you go, that doesn't make sense. So like some people say, oh, they're not needed because you're not going high altitude. Has nothing to do with altitude. How fast you go in altitude can change the pressure inside the body of the rocket so quickly that you pop the nose cone or the center section on a rocket where it comes apart. Vent holes are important. Whether doing the basic things of shock cord attachment. Did I get my parachute attached?
Oh, jeez.
Did I? And look, if you need to find a way to do yourself a checklist, then do a checklist. It's not frowned upon. When you do it a long time, you start to form
it becomes a second nature, muscle memory. Right.
You also form a procedure and everything. And whether it's how I build my stuff as recipe. I'm putting things together, I can literally walk away from it and come back to it and know where I walked away from it because I place things in an identification position of that's not together. So this is where I left off. I put a little red flag for myself is what I basically do. That and I tend to...
So let me interject for a second there on that. So when we start talking about like the steps, when I was at dinner with Joe Hempworth and those guys, one of the things that Joe did bring up during our conversation was, I think one of the only high power flyers that uses a checklist. And, Charlie and I kind of look at each other, Chris looks at us and, at that point, I have anything to say. You know what? He might be. And, one of the things that I'm going to start recommending to people is to create a checklist with those steps that you've thought about. We do it for everything else. I mean, I do it for work on a lot of different things. And, I had my checklist for my level 3. But, as the things go, and just like, Jim, you're saying as the day goes long, that's kind of something like, oh, where's my checklist at? Oh, I didn't look at it at all. And then all of a sudden you get out to the field, take the wrong screwdriver out there. I mean, the littlest thing could go wrong. So, I mean, one of the things that, that you touch base on that, create your checklist, create your steps. For sure.
Oh, there's one flyer at Tripoli, Mid-Ohio that has a checklist and he puts it on his wrist. It's a little card that he has. And he says, there's once a long time ago where I didn't have a checklist and I had a problem. I said, ever since then, I've had this checklist. It was beat up, it was worn, but it was hanging from his wrists. So that way he would never lose it. And he said he's never had a problem since. So he was proud of it. Good for him.
No, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm not anti-checklist at all. I'm pro-checklist if that's what works for you.
Yep, absolutely. And that is what works for him. And he's never had a problem since. So more power to him.
I think it's important that even as you build and design your projects, you need to have a little forethought into their use, into
absolutely
how you're going to build it to make it so come apart. How does it come apart? Is this going to be difficult to access? Is this? I see people they will build things, and unfortunately, they look back on it and go, "Man, if I'd have done that differently." Good friend of mine, who's getting ready to go for his level 3, George Tuma. He and I were talking about that, and I was pointing out some things, and he goes, that makes sense because, man, now I can actually fly that thing again, not just a one-time flight, or I can really actually do things with it. And once you've made years of mistakes, knock on wood, you learn from those mistakes. And I've made plenty of them early on to be able to go back on and go, I'm not going to design my ab bay that way anymore. Or I'm going to design my charges in a specific way. Or I'm going to design my recovery in a specific way because it works every time, because it's easy to use, because it makes it so I can service it or whatever I need to do. And that's one of the things I think a lot of new high-power flyers, as they're building things, they get really into the excitement of doing it, and they don't take the time to slow down. And you don't have to build your rocket in one night either. That's another thing that I see. It's go fast. It's no, relax, slow down.
No.
And even between the levels, people don't understand the amount of fun. So going from level 1 to level 2, you got H and I. Man, there are a bunch of motors that are H and I motors out there that you can really have a good time with. Whether it's cluster, staging, big eyes, fast eyes, slow H's, whatever you want to do. And the same goes with level 2 to level 3, except it's even cooler because some of the coolest, I think, motors, dollar per bang is L motors. Literally, they have
underrated. Yep,
they so underrated. Fairly affordable, almost as punchy and big like a lot of M's.
Oh yeah, Conway was teasing me a couple of weeks ago. Well, it was a couple months ago when we were talking about that Alien Interceptor Jeem. I launched that on that M1297. He's like, "Oh, so you launched it on a big L?" Oh, I just kind of did this.
What it is, yeah.
It's like it's still an M. He's like, "Yeah, on paper,
barely."
So it flew okay. 12,000 feet. I'm not too mad about that.
No, that's a great flight.
It's back here, actually. Yeah, it's back here chilling.
One of the favorite motors for the kids that I like, they build rockets and I'll fly for them when we go out, is the L1000. It's a baby L.
Oh yeah.
It's a very low L. But boy, is that thing fun. And it's single use and it's ready to go. You just unwrap it, put an igniter, a starter in it, and go. It's great. I really think they're underrated because there's such a mix of those. You could go from that baby L up to the baby M in that whole range. And, when I first flew my first L, I was like, whoa, this thing has a lot of kick to it. And I'm exploring some of that, and they're still affordable, like you were saying. And it's just, it's a great little niche to get into, and especially around like back east, we can't go as high as you guys do out there. So it's a good way to get your rocket on and still have a good time. So you're absolutely right. I totally agree with you.
Hey, Conway, which L did you fly on that 3-inch Alien Interceptor?
I flew the Loki L1040. Which is it's the case down from their 4,000 Newton second case.
You had mentioned George, and George went with me to LDRS, and he just got back in the hobby kind of like you did. He made his return back in 2020. He's a born-again Rocketeer as well. And, you guys have developed a rapport, and George is the guy I keep telling you people that is my old boss, so it's that same dude. And he broke a Wildman 3, I think the last time I talked about this on my last report that we had for LDRS, he broke 15,000 on that Wildman 3 with an L motor, and he finally got to the point. He's like, "Yeah, I think I need to level 3 because I want to go higher. I want to explore more options." And I've done a lot of work with these L's, and he's got more L flights than I have. I got like 3 L flights. I think he's got like 7 now. So,
wow.
In a very short period of time. George is one of those guys that was really wanting to do his L3, and he's like talking to me about it. And I said, man, the best thing you could do is get a bunch of experience flying, L motors to show the taps that, I know what I'm doing and I'm serious. And that's something else too, is as you're becoming a high power flyer, build a rapport with the other high power flyers as your skills. And that way, when you're going out to the pad, they're not going, look out, everybody. Guess who's getting ready to launch something.
Yeah.
You don't want to be.
We had a
guy
guy like that.
You want the right rapport.
Every club does. Okay. And as you get that rapport, because, when you go for the next level, it becomes easier for you to be able to establish that with the TAP or the L3CC or any of the other flyers that are going to witness your flight for you.
Good piece of advice there.
Yes.
So I think, I'm sorry. I think George's taps are actually Art. And you mentioned him just a little while ago. I think Jason.
Art Hogue.
Art and Jason.
And Jason, yep. Both
Jason
of them,
Chamberlain. So, and you guys have heard his voice before. So
I remember.
We need to get Jason back on the show, guys.
I remember when Jason was not even a level 1. I've known Jason for a long time, and Jason's another really good guy and good flyer, and Art Hogue's another really awesome individual. In fact, he is the inventor of what we call now the Art Hogue rule, which is the you can't certify all 3 in one day rule.
That's where that story came from. All right. You can talk about that at some point.
Indeed. So anyway, we're going to take our last break here on the Rocketry Show, and we'll come back with more with Conway Stevens. Having fun talking rocketry, high-power rocket stuff, some history, some education. It's all right here. We'll be right back after this. Lock Precision Rocketry manufactures a full line of high-quality precision fit components to meet your building, repairing, and customizing needs. Lock Precision believes in making rocket kits as light as possible while maintaining the strength required to fly with commercially available motors. Lock Precision offers a wide range of rocket kits from the 1-inch diameter Lock 1 series to high-power rockets reaching 7.6 inches in diameter. When you visit LockPrecision.com, be sure to check out their Performance Series kits featuring such designs as the Black Brand 10, the Caliper ISP, and the 3.1-inch diameter Iris rocket. All of Lock Precision's performance kits comes with everything you need, including pre-slotted airframes, high-grade precision-cut plywood fins and components, as well as ripstop nylon parachutes, rugged shock cords, polypropylene nose cone, and instructions. The name Lock Precision has been synonymous with mid and high-power rocketry for over 30 years. Check out LockPrecision.com to find out why. LockPrecision.com. Fly higher. Fly Lock. It's time for eRockets.biz. eRockets.biz is your home for unique model rocket kits, as well as the world's largest selection of rocket parts from Semrock. They've been in business since 2009. eRockets.biz has a wide selection of your favorite kits, as well as their own versions of popular, out-of-production models many of you have come to enjoy over the years. And Jesse, what did you find?
Hey, CG. So right now, this episode's being recorded around October. So good old Rocketober.
Rocketober.
So one of the cool things about October and Rocketober is the end of the month. You guys have that one holiday where you get to dress weird and you get to fly weird rockets. So I tell you what, instead of flying a weird rocket, let's go back to the basics and let's look at something with 4 fins and a nose cone.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys ever checked out the North Coast Rocketry Hobgoblin? Now, eRockets actually has these in stock right now.
Ooh.
And to be honest with you, this is a kit that everybody has looked at, but probably has never built because they've either built the Estes version or the Lock version, which are also great kits and also available at eRockets. But take a look at the North Coast Rocketry Hobgoblin. This is a 2.6-inch diameter rocket. This particular rocket, it has the laser cut pirate fins. It has self-adhesive decals. It does have a laser slot body tube. It does have the plywood centering rings. It does have a really nice nose cone that is surprisingly is actually easy to finish. So the description on the website is for real. It is really easy to finish. This also does come with the patented North Coast Rocketry Gorilla shock cord system, which is, where you can tie the two steel cable ends together with the ferrules, and you can leave it underneath the body tube, and then you can attach your Kevlar/Armid shock cord along with an elastic cord if you want to give it that little bounce if you need it. So that's something that works out really well in these size rockets. And this particular rocket on the website does say that it's about 45 inches long. However, that is not the case. It is more like 33 inches long, just so everybody is aware. But this rocket, I have one, and I love this thing. I have flown it on a G80, which is a recommended motor, and it did go about 3,500 feet. So, that is 100% true. But man, these rockets are really cool, guys. They come with the regular Goblin decal and the little bats with a little bit of spikes on the bats. So they look a little cooler than just your typical Goblin decal. So the big old long 5-to-1 O-Gave nose cone really adds to this as well. So, if you want, paint one of those fins black and get this thing in the air. Available at eRockets right now. Standard price of $59.99.
All right. In addition to that Hobgoblin, you've got plenty of other rocketry items to choose from as well, such as educational rocket kits and supplies, air rockets, water rockets, and so much more. eRockets.biz certainly has enough kits and supplies to keep you busy in your workshop for a long time to come. Need parts for your own custom builds? No problem. eRockets.biz also supplies the Semrock line of airframes, nose cones, centering rings, motor mounts, and so much more. eRockets has more rocket parts available than anyone else on Earth. So check out eRockets.biz today to learn more. eRockets.biz. If rocketry scares you, buy a train set. Conway Stevens does not have a train set. He just has rockets. So rocketry does not scare him.
Huge rockets. They're ridiculous.
Going up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, liftoff.
From Little Beth Media, a new podcast on model rocketry with build techniques, model rocket history, interviews with industry insiders, stuff for beginners and longtime model rocketeers, everything from low to mid-power. The Model Rocket Show with me, the Rocket Noob, at TheRocketryShow.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Welcome back to The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. We're having a lot of fun talking deep talk on high-power rocketry and some advice on first-time folks. And I know Jesse's got some questions, but I do want to drop in there real quick for me getting into my level 1. There's a little bit of Conway in me in that if I'm going to go level 1, I got to make it count. So when I was messing around in my mid-power rocket with Nala rocket, I did know at that point that my rockets were heading into this direction where they're modular in construction. So you can take them apart, fix things, put them back together again, internal baffles and all that. So I used that mid-power platform to test all my ideas. And as I had the ideas perfected or working good enough in mid-power, I would go and build that section on the level 1 rocket, Nezuru. So that way, when it came time for the launch, I was reasonably certain that structurally the rocket's going to be fine, and also when I was doing the mid power, I was doing everything in dual deploy because I wanted the level 1 to be dual deploy, and I was already doing dual deploy, so I was not going to step backwards on the first launch. And people were telling me, "No, dude, you need just fly with a parachute, go low and slow, and and just get it." And I was like, "Nah, that's not me." It's like,
yeah, you're already learning all those steps and you're mastering them. So
you don't have a train set either, do you?
Actually, I do, but when I got into rocketry, it just they're all in Tupperware totes now.
My level 1 was dual deploy too, because I was dual deploying on G's for 2 years before I did it, so.
Yeah.
Jeem's done some really cool dual deploy stuff. Like, didn't you make a BT-55 Archer that was dual deploy?
Yeah, it's back there on the shelf. It's, yeah. Well, hang on a second. I'll pull it out. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeem went one step smaller. I was doing the BT-60, so everything I was doing is in 38 millimeter.
Oh, yeah.
And now the rocket was the 38 millimeter flying 29 millimeter motors in it. So
I love dual
it's
deploy.
Just a small little.
Honestly,
small
the
little
only way to
BT.
fly.
Thank you, Apogee Components, for the electronics bay. So
So
And
Jim
then-
is showing us his electronics bay from Apogee for the BT55. And then that's not a kit, right? Like you made that? Like
no, that's a scratch.
Scratch
Total
built that?
scratch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well,
that
I
looks
built this
pretty good.
design 7 times, so you think by now I should have it right.
Oh, that's good.
Get that thumb screw off real quick, and I know there's people that are listening to this, but let me see if I can pull this
Just
out.
opening it up.
Put me on the spot here.
Oh, sorry.
Ah, it's good.
See, the
I
other
haven't
thing
pulled this
that you
out
were
in a
talking about, while he's doing that, the other thing you talked about was giving some thought into your designs. And that's one of the things that my newer rockets are all made so that it's easier to prep them. So like Nezru takes a lot of work because it's a complicated rocket, but it takes a lot of time to take it apart, get it all together, put the charges in, test it out, put it back together. So it's like if I'm flying 2 flights with that, the first flight has to happen in the morning. And then by the time they're doing the last launch of the day, I can get another flight with Nezru. But the newer rockets, but the newer rockets, I designed them so they're easier to turn around, so I can do like 3 flights in a day if I wanted to. But
wow,
like Conway though, it's not fun because I'm exhausted after that. I'd rather just do one really good flight
Give
and
me
then
one
sit
really
back
good
and watch
flight,
the launch.
and then hang out and get a chance to visit with all my friends. So like you talk about, planning forward. Here's one of the problems that we see that comes along frequently. Aluminum tips on nose cones. They come loose sometimes. Well, how do you access that if you glue your coupler and everything in? Well, what I've done on mine is this is all modular design in the way it is. So this is an actual tracking bay. As you can see, I have installed on these is little rivet nuts. Then I file them, and now that's got female threads in it. And then I basically can line it up, set it in with the holes, and then run a flush-mounted set screw into it. And there's 3 set screws that go around it, and that locks that thing in place. On this here, this has an opening that comes open. By the way, this is an awesome piece that comes from Mac Performance Rocketry on their nose cone bay.
Electronics.
Oh, look at that. And then you can stick your long screwdriver in there and tighten up your aluminum tip when you need to.
The nice thing is if I need to tighten that up, I can pull this apart, access the inside of the nose cone, and there you go.
Very cool.
Nice.
So a lot of the fiberglass nose cones don't come with mounting. Locked Precision just bought PML, and we didn't formally announce that yet, but in case it's news to anybody. So when you buy a nose cone from like Performance Hobbies from Ken, a lot of those were made from PML, and Jason from Lock is now learning how to hand weave those. And Jason, I don't know if you want me to talk about that, but since I'm already getting nose cones from you already that are fiberglass. Conway, what you're showing us right there is actually really cool. So maybe send us some pictures of that so we can put it on our show notes, because I think some of these nose cones don't come with they don't come with a bulkhead. They don't come with any type of attachments. So you have to try to figure out how to make your own. And, sometimes getting some centering rings and maybe doing a design kind of like what you got there, people can use that as an example to figure out how to mount something for your attachments in a fiberglass nose cone, especially the ones that just have a shoulder and nothing inside. So, I mean, that's really cool that you brought that up. Hey guys, I need to pick all y'all's brain.
Okay.
So let me talk to you about this real quick since we got Conway here on the show. So behind me, for those of you who can't see, I got my Skinwalker. That's SWR004, the one that I keep yapping about. It seems like, every other episode I'm yapping about some rocket that I'm building. Well, this is the one, if you guys remember from the Lock episode, that Jason said, Jesse's going to fly a Skinwalker at Airfest. Dadgummit, I did it. I flew this thing. And I'll give you guys some pictures so you can see the fin can. It's wrapped in carbon fiber. The fins are laminated in carbon fiber. The only thing that I didn't do, because I wanted to make sure I flew this thing at Airfest, was I didn't seal and laminate my leading edges to the fins. They're contoured and they look really nice, but they're just painted black, like just quick, fast, and easy to get it out the door. In a modular sense, CG and Conway and Jim, I did kind of what we had talked about and everything. And the body tube, it's not just one big old long 60-inch body tube. This thing comes off so that you can access the harnesses, you can access the inside tubes. There's a lot of things that you can do maintenance wise by detaching this other blue body tube that you see behind me. And then, of course, I got the payload tube, which is another 30-inch, 7.5-inch tube. And those tubes are wrapped in not carbon fiber, but 6-ounce fiberglass. And they're nice and stout and sturdy. And, the flight that I had at Airfest, this rocket went up to 7,662 feet on a Aerotech M1845 New Thunder. And one of the reasons I got that, Jim, is because, number one, Blue Thunders. We're talking about the Blue Thunders. This is the new Blue Thunder. Yep. And so I wanted to try that. It had the impulse that seemed really good for this rocket. And Conway Joe had these in stock. Moto Joe had these. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm that's our motor right there. I'm getting that. So I know, Jim, you said M4500. I'm not ready for that quite yet, but, maybe this rocket can pull it off at some point. We'll figure that out. But anyway, the rocket went up. Did fine. I got videos on that. And to be honest with you guys, Blaine from Model Rocket TV recorded me setting the entire thing up, was in my face the entire time, and he's going to put out a segment on Model Rocket TV. So you're going to see us work together with him on that. And hopefully he has that, edited pretty soon and everything, because I'm anxious to see it. Just kind of like listening to a new episode of The Rocketry Show, I'm anxious to see it. But getting back to this, when the rocket was coming down, I had an RRC2 and an RRC2L as my altimeters and the apogee tracker. The deployment went okay with the drogue charge. It came down on a 36-inch drogue, parabolic drogue. And everything looked to be okay except Conway, the rocket was spinning around slowly like a helicopter. You got payload going around, body tube and body tube going a little smaller of a rotation, but it was definitely spinning. So here's where I ran into my problem. At 1,000 feet, I had my main eject with the altimeter number 1, and then the other one was to eject at 800. So the parachute did come out, according to the reports, with the main, altimeter at 1,000 feet. The parachute came out, and Blaine was kind enough to give me screenshots of the video. It came out and unfurled. The parachute was expanded. Okay. And then it got caught in its own recovery harness for the main. And you can actually see it. At first it's all like ballooned out, all pretty, and then all of a sudden it did this and collapsed. Yeah. So I basically came down 7,600 feet on a on a drogue slash parachute-ish streamer contraption. But because of my awesome carbon fiber wrap job, and because of my because of the rain in Argonia a couple of days before and the soft mud in the fields and the freaking Milo sorghum or whatever you call it. That crap was annoying, but at least it fell and landed in the mud, and I brought some Kansas back with me on the fins, and if you look, maybe you can see the mud back there. I haven't cleaned it off yet, and it's been a week. It's been a week already. But Conway, experienced flyer. Jeem, experienced flyer. CG, experienced flyer. What did I do wrong there? What happened that my chute came out, deployed, and then got tangled? Got a couple of things maybe you can give an insight for listeners that might...
couple of things I would ask and I'll also look at is how much does the rocket weigh? What's the recovery weight?
The rocket was 49 pounds. Oh, recovery weight? Well, the rocket with the motor was 49 pounds.
So it's going to be a lot less than that,
so
about probably 9 or 10 pounds less than that after burnout.
So like 44 or something like that?
Probably, let's just say around an even 40. So
so like 40 pounds?
Roughly. At 40 pounds, a 36-inch drogue would be way too large. One of the things I see that a lot of people do is they put an excessive amount of drogue chute on a rocket. Quite honestly, you don't need a whole lot of drogue at all. Most rockets, and that flat spin you got is because you're drafting the air with it, supported by that drogue, and it's spinning around like a wheel. And what happens is you don't get that kind of L angular shape that you want out of the harness,
right?
To where it's kind of just a flat free fall that's controlled. Right. So with a smaller drogue and having the drogue attached closer to the av bay, not closer to the booster, you'll allow the booster to dangle some, and it won't be so much of a hang time for it to spin around like that. One of the problems you can have is that spinning effect can cause it to spin around, eject the nose cone when the main comes out. And then as it spins around, you can have the back end catch the nose or the main recovery harness.
Okay.
So, like,
what descent rate are you guys looking for on a drogue, guys? On a 40-pound rocket?
Yeah, most of my stuff is drogeless for my smaller, my 4-inch rockets. But my big one, 18 inches from my big Archer, that big one back there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
18 inches. Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. I had similar things going on with the earlier flights with Nesru, where the drogue was too big, so that spinning helicopter-y thing. And then I didn't have any problems, but it was always scary looking when the main would come out because everything was just in all the wrong places.
It was in movement.
But it would work itself out. But what I ended up doing is just flying that and the other rockets of that size drogeless as well, because the rockets themselves would create just enough drag on their own where they become their own drogue on the way down. So
Conway made a good point though. Is like question is how far down was the drogue from the AV bay?
About a third of the way down on a 55 long cord, 55 foot long cord. It's about a third of the way down.
And I would probably only have it out about maybe 4 feet away from the AV bay.
Yeah. I mean,
outside
way
the
farther than that.
Yeah, I put mine a lot closer. Most of my rockets that do have drogues, I use an X form, so it's just like an X piece of cloth, and it's anywhere from 12 to maybe 18 inches, depending on the size of the rocket. Now, the only ones that I do differently are like the bigger rockets like you're flying. I'll use one of Spear Shoots, one of Julie's Apex drogues, which they're phenomenal in the way they work because they're not like a normal. They're almost like, if you've seen the balloons they use underwater to lift stuff up in the air that they fill up with air, they're more almost like that, but it's not a balloon, it's a parachute. So it has the ability to catch air. It's got like a round neck on it that's fairly small. And then it's got these draft ports that allow 3 different outlets for it to come out of. So it's just a control factor that slows it down some. Sure. The other thing would be too is on yours, Jesse, is how far down on the harness was your main chute attached from the nose cone?
So it was a 30-foot main harness.
Correct.
In the payload with a 12-foot spear chute. So that one, I'm going to say that's only a quarter of the way down. So yeah, I'm probably going to say maybe like 6 to 8 feet. It's not very far.
Yeah, and I like to get them fairly close to the nose cone, so that way, the nose cone doesn't go swinging around back under.
And I think that's exactly what happened, because the nose cone's heavy. The nose cone on its own, guys, is like 8 pounds.
Yeah.
So because it's that fiberglass.
Too much movement out of the nose, or you give too much harness, it can come back and hit the booster, hit the body, get tangled up in your main chute.
That's what happened. It definitely got tangled in the main chute, and you can see it happen. Like, so just to be transparent, this is my 3rd M flight. This was not my level 3 certification. My level 3 certification is a whole different story. We'll tell some other day. Right? And Conway was there. He saw it. He had to carry my rocket back because it was too heavy for me. So he just sort of puts it over his shoulder, like, no big deal. Got a picture of that. It's kind of cool. But anyway, this rocket here, I got told by somebody there that was at Airfest, and I don't know his name, and he wasn't being rude or anything, but he did say, so it looks like you failed your level 3. And just to be transparent, guys, I mean, that is a requirement. You have to deploy your parachute correctly, or you will fail your level 3. Yep. So if this was a certification flight for me, I would not have passed it. But just to be transparent, this is my 3rd M flight this year, which I never thought I'd do that many in a year. Never thought I'd fly that many M's in a year. And it's not a big deal for guys like Conway, come with this big old comeback with 6 rockets with huge motors in a year. But I'm pretty proud of that. But, the next time I fly a big motor in a rocket this size, I want to make sure that my chute, comes out correctly. And I'm going to do what you guys said. And, I'll give you guys some feedback on the next few episodes. We'll see what happens. So
it's also really important to pack your chute correctly, as far as with not just the harness, by Z-folding it. I recommend Z-folding it with tape. I also recommend,
and from James Russell and Jason and you, I do like to do the Z folds. Let me talk to you guys about how I do that real quick. So on those harnesses, what I'd like to do is take maybe about 6 inches of harness and wrap it into like 5 different spools and then wrap it with tape and then just kind of keep going down the line until everything is succumbed to one, decent looking tape. Now, I've seen there's some spool winders out there that can actually wind up into like a circle contraption. And that's a new thing that I've seen lately that some people really like. Conway, I don't know what your thoughts are about those, or Jim and CG, have you seen those?
I actually own one.
Heard of them.
And I've tried it out, and
Thoughts?
it does not do the same thing as like if you are Z-folding the harness. And then so like, let's say on mine, I'll go like a 10 to 12 inch section of harness and fold it back and forth like 3 or 4 times. And then each end gets taped with like electrical tape. Electrical tape's harder to tear than masking
So you don't do it in
tape.
the middle, you do it on each end?
Each end.
Oh, okay.
So that way
And
when
Jim
you
and
yank
CG,
it,
what do you guys think?
as
Yeah,
you're
it creates that
yanking
resistance.
Exactly. You're trying to tear those tape folds. And I'll do that about 4 different times down a harness. And then it's basically into its own little bundle. Pack the chute, by folding it in halves and then basically taking the chute lines, running them up and then back down and then back up and then back down until it's just at the bottom. Fold it over again and then start folding it from lengthwise to shortwise until I get it into a size. And then you can take like your burrito wrap and start wrapping it into a package.
How do you guys fold your stuff, CG and Jim?
I do. Well, go ahead, CG.
I have my own way to do
pack
where
your lines?
the packing the lines on the rockets that I'm flying now. I just kind of like I do the Z fold things, but I don't tape them, and the reason I don't is because I'm using the 777, and I've got that worked out with the rockets to the point where when it goes off, it's more of a soft kind of push. So it doesn't. This 777 doesn't have as much energetics to it, but you've got to ground test the daylights out of it though, because you want to make sure that you get just enough to do the job. But so with that in mind, the at apogee, my rockets tend to open pretty slow, so you don't have to worry about the lines becoming taut. But I do make my lines ridiculously long too. So.
Well, I'm a proponent of long lines as well, and the Z folding, or as it's known as, is reefing a harness. I think is important.
Okay. Thank you.
It will basically take a lot of that shock out of things. Same with the length as far as it goes, and I think you got to properly, ground test one, but also realize that. Ground testing doesn't always equal air because you have resistance on the ground that's different. In the air, you also have factors of physics of motion and gravity. And then you also have altitude that changes things.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of stuff to consider.
I do the same. I do the
I
same
know that
thing.
doing simulations, it's hard to do, recovery with a sim. You definitely have to have that experience. And that's another reason I think not to rush your certs and, just to get a lot of flying under your belt, especially when you're doing like wide diameter rockets and stuff like that. Sure, you got a ton of room, but you got to make sure everything's wrapped correctly. And the description on how you said to wrap your chute, Conway, that is how I do it. I was really happy, and you can ask Blaine, because we're sitting there, I was like, Blaine, I've never been able to wrap the chute this nice. And I was proud when I first saw it unravel. And then when it collapsed, I'm like, oh man, what happened? And, so I was kind of sad because that would have been glorious to see come down, but I'll do it again and we'll do it right. And, I'll keep you all updated. So I appreciate you guys answering my questions on that. And, okay. So when we start looking at, level 3, level 2, how many flights have you had in between? I'm not by any means a super experienced flyer. I've taught myself a lot. I've listened to a lot of stuff that people tell me. And you have to get out there and get your own practical experience as well. And you do have to kind of combine and discern, the people that just assume stuff versus the people that have practiced stuff. And you have to be able to figure out your stuff for yourselves. But that's not going to happen, people, unless you get out there and fly. So get out there and fly. So
and And also, too, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows when I'm talking about what I'm doing. I'm just a level 1, so so I can get away with a lot more than in a level 2 where you're pushing some heavy rockets. So what Conway's saying, you definitely follow that. And now if you're using more energetic stuff with level 1, I found that the Z folds also help with minimizing your zippers that you would get too.
Correct.
As things are pulling up against stuff. So,
do we lose Gene?
No, I'm here. I'm listening.
I think I heard his voice.
Can you hear me?
You there, Gene?
Can you hear me? Okay.
I guess not. It's where I feel like those moments like this is where I feel like, in Star Wars, where you got the Darth Vader talking to his troops during battle, and they're all holographic projections, and then when one of the battle cruisers explodes, they just go into static and disappear.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm here. I've always been here.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Little technical glitch, but it's just, I was saying, like, I don't know if you got it or not, but I was saying I do exactly the same thing with the harness. I do bundles, like I Z fold it 4 or 5 times, go up the line. I have a long cord, at least 25 feet for most of my stuff on both harnesses. 5 bundles. That is usually what I do with a little bit of tape around each bundle, and then just pack it in a circle, and then shoot and burrito on top.
Okay. And do you guys use dog barf as
Absolutely.
well, like on top of your motors?
Yes.
Okay.
Always.
Me, I've got baffles inside of mine, but
that's right. See, everybody does something a little different. So
I usually
give it a
use
shot.
a little bit of dog barf. If you're another thing I've also been known to do is on a small tether, place a sacrificial piece of Kevlar or Nomex in there.
And sacrificial piece.
Basically, it's like a chute protector that's just small enough to rub down the sides of the diameter of the tube that you can push it down around the top of the charge and set your chute and everything down over the top of it. It takes the main brunt of the flame coming out.
Good idea.
Hey, Conway. Yeah. I forgot to even mention this, but real quick here, since you're here, can you talk about your recovery harness attachments?
Yeah,
you discovered some stuff over the summer that can you share with some folks about what you do now?
So one of the things I like to find out ways to do is build lighter. I think in our hobby and generally, we have a tendency to overbuild. Not that I'm saying it's a bad thing.
Yep.
And not that I'm saying that's a bad thing, because a lot of the times we build way stronger than what the situation maybe needs. Whether it's all thread through a booster, which isn't necessary. Thrust plates aren't even necessarily 100% necessary, except for certain situations, I think.
Okay.
I think the main thing would be is like on bigger rockets like this 8-inch airframe. That's a great place for like a plate to be able to transfer that. But recovery is one of those areas I think that we overkill some things. I like a good stout harness, and I use Kevlar. But my attachment points, I'm not a fan of quick links. And I'll explain why. Having seen multiple quick links actually come apart in flight, not just one, but over the years, multiple. Okay. Now, whether it's the flyer's
come apart
fault,
as in now you're saying come apart as in like the metal breaks or becomes unscrewed.
I'll send you a video of another flyer I know that he actually captured his on the onboard video of a drogeless flight coming in, and you can see the rocket and the harness. It separates and it starts coming down, and you can see the body tube, and here's the harness coming out, and like right here is this quick link attaching to the harness to the rest of the rocket down to the booster. And you literally watch the thing come apart and go boop and bye-bye booster.
Oh, wow.
I've seen them actually get torn apart. Now, most of the times the failure is because Either bought a
Not tight and
really
dry it or
cheap
something.
one. The biggest
yeah,
things
yeah.
is you
Pot metal.
you didn't tighten it down with a wrench or pliers. And I also recommend, if you're going to use them, after you tighten them with a wrench or pliers, something good and tight, take some electrical tape, go around it to where it can't allow it to back off. That's another secure factor.
Got it.
But what I like is what's called a soft link. They use them for parachutes, for human rated stuff.
Okay.
It's basically a strip of Kevlar. On the one end, it's got a loop. And on the other end, it's got a loop, but it's got a tab that's attached to that loop. Flat tab.
Okay.
And basically what you do is so the ones I've got are rated at 2,500 pounds before they'll fail.
They're pretty awesome. I've seen them.
Can you name a single quick link that's out there that's rated past or close to 2,500 pounds? Not a single one. I flew my 8-inch project this last year on the end motor flight, and that's what I used to hold it together, was soft links. And that is a rocket that weighed on the pad close to 90 pounds and flew to 12,200 feet.
Jeez, dude.
Each section was held together by soft links. So you take this strip of Kevlar, it's tubular Kevlar, and you go through like your eyelet and you have your harness. So then you're going to go through the loop, through the eyelet, back through the loop, back through the eyelet. So you make 2 wraps. And then you're going to take this end that has a loop, but you're going to push that loop through this loop that has the tab. And then when you're done, you take this loop and spread it open, slip it over the tab, and yank it tight.
Yeah, pictures, right? No,
oh, yeah.
Share those with us.
Get you some pictures. I've actually got a video that I made for a friend on how to use it. There are some.
Did you make these yourself, Conway, or was
no.
that something that you can get from a vendor?
You could get these from a vendor, or you could get them from somebody that's a rigger.
I see.
Cool.
Yeah, I just found some. After you mentioned that, I was fascinated. I just did a search. I found some from a place called Shooting Star.
Yep.
Skydiving superstore kind of place. So
too cool.
Yeah.
But
they weigh almost.
They're
next
not
to
new.
Nothing. They're not new.
And they're not new. I mean, there's obviously BJ Gray has talked about a variant of that and it doesn't use a soft tab though. It has a piece of metal that I know we've had discussions about those too. But I mean, people like to use those on some of the mid-power type birds.
Well, some of the reasons why I like to use the soft links over like a hard link is A, loss of weight. B, I'm really not too keen on the idea of a piece of metal rattling around up there next to my charges.
Gotcha.
Or,
sure.
An E-match or anything like that could create a problem of any sort. The soft link adds way more strength, less weight, no conductivity. I'm a big fan of them.
Sounds like a
I use them
no-brainer.
on everything I fly now.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that out.
We're going to have to find these. Yep. Shooting Star, huh, CG? Okay. Well, we might have to
get on the
I'm sure
there's
there
other places too.
Yeah.
Because I've been using the quick links in some of the rockets, and it is a significant part of the weight. By the time you add them all up, and if you pull them all out and throw them on a table, it's like, man, if I can get rid of this weight, I can get even more altitude out of this thing.
Imagine the size of quick links that you're using on an 8-inch diameter rocket. What they are like and how much they weigh. Now you start adding those up, and swivels and everything else, and you're like, I got 20 pounds of quick links.
Right.
Oh, man. The package from Lock for their 7.5-inch rocket, their package of hardware probably weighs about 4 pounds. If you guys get something with electronics bay, this Skinwalker, when it came with everything, I put that on the scale. It was like 3.5 pounds worth of hardware. It's a lot of stuff. So And, there's a lot of guys that don't like to do all thread in their electronic base too. I mean, CG, we talked about that with Scott Binder. And, there's a few people that are trying to get more out of that and get into some other type of variant to do an electronic bay. I mean, I kind of like it myself because I kind of want that forward weight, especially when I overbuild these fin cans so I can stand on them, which I have done on this, by the way, and it's awesome.
I did that on my L3
But anyway, I think listening to your guys' stories is what made me want to do it. So thanks for that. But no, hey, thanks a lot for answering my questions, guys. That's why we have these workshop conversations for sure. So we are all still learning.
That's when I stop learning that I don't fly anymore, man.
Yeah. I don't care how much you experience. I've had the fortunate ability to build up to personally O motors as far as for research stuff, fly big rockets, high rockets. And every time I do something, it's always a learning experience on every flight. Everything you do, it's part of growing, and that's one of the things I love about the hobby so much.
You had a specialty motor that you built yourself, right? What color was your specialty?
My signature motor was my blue.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool.
It was a formula that I created myself. I scaled it up as big as N as in Nancy. I'd planned on doing an O with it, but unfortunately that was about the time when I'd started dealing with some illnesses. But yeah, it would easily scale to O or P or any of those, I believe. It's fully pourable.
There you go, Jim.
Right.
It's like
what's the defining features of your blue motor propellant?
It's really loud.
I like that.
Therefore, not only really loud, it actually is easily scalable. But me and a bunch of the other guys, James Russell and everybody, we're doing a day of test stand stuff where we all take our motors that we've built and we're doing pressure tests. We're doing, data acquisition and to get, to classify motors. So I brought up about 8 different motors ranging from 38 millimeters to 98 millimeters. And so everybody's got their like 75s on there, and I'm starting out with like this little 54 millimeter. And somebody's like, wow, that's a really loud 75. I'm like, it's just a 54. And and they're
cool.
Like, so at that point they nicknamed it Loudmouth Blue. And so my formula became Loudmouth Blue.
Nice.
Okay.
But I've also
what's its thrust character?
A violet.
Violet.
Well, the blue, it's not a really like you see a bunch of blues that are really fast burn. This is not crazy fast burn.
Okay.
I've slowed it down a little bit of stuff like oxmide, things like that. So it's not as fast.
Okay.
But the great thing is it's like 82 to 84% solids, and it's still pourable.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
That's cool. I'm still dipping my toes into that world, so I've got a lot to learn. So I'd love to pick your brain sometime.
And now you got another resource.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to pick your brain sometime offline so I can really dive in if you don't mind.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Building motors is probably... I'd almost rather do motors all the time than even almost fly sometimes. Not that I dislike flying. I love flying rockets. Just building motors is that much fun. I used to show up at our research launches and just, you look like you need to fly something. Go stick that in a rocket, and they'd be like, what is it? Well, let me ask you, how well is your motor going to be? How well is your rocket put together? I did do an L once that was pretty fast. The L I did it for a friend of mine, Dave Jarks. He had this funny looking pink rocket. I can't even remember the name of it now, but this thing was like the L9000. It was a 98 millimeter coffee can, 2-grain motor, and it burned for less than a second.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wow.
That's a kick in the pants.
That's James.
I like them fast.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was real fast, and so it was pretty much this great big whoom, and then all you hear from there is this crazy whistle of the rocket going up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Love it. That's my
Too
kind
cool.
of motor.
So real quick, do we have time to ask Conway 20 questions? Or
Sure, yeah.
In our case, it's actually like 6 questions. But
Even if we don't have time, editing is a wonderful thing.
oh, touche. So anyway, so Conway, what's the name of your big 8-inch rocket back there? We didn't talk about that yet.
My big 8-inch rocket is called Thug Smash.
which is also our nickname and how we have Conway listed in our cellular phones. So we don't call him Conway Stevens. He's known as Thug Smash. So you guys can address him that way if you really want to. You can also find him on Facebook under the Viking Rocketeer. That's where he puts all his projects. So like I have my model rocket guy. You can see Conway stuff on the Viking Rocketeer, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
is that your page? And then
Viking heritage, and I love rockets, man.
And then
There you go.
Loudmouth Blue. That's another one. So yeah, and then
I
of
told
course
you, I don't own a
Tacos for
train
10,
set.
So all right. So dang, CG, now I can't remember those questions. Okay, let me go ahead and start off a couple of those questions. So did you listen to our last episode with Jenna Kay and the Hot Nozzle Summer Movement?
Yeah, from
Conway?
the Houston Center. Yep.
Yeah. Where do you see the new generation of Rocketeers going? What kind of quick advice do you have for them?
Don't give up. Stick with it. If you do quit, come back. This is a hobby that attracts you, and you can go away from it, but it's like this magnetic pole that pulls you back in. But probably the biggest things is take your time, learn, don't be in too big of a hurry, enjoy it, and be sure to fight to keep it alive for future generations. And because that's all I did was I thought about the other people that, hey, if I let the ATF win, if I let, this hobby die because I didn't promote it to people that can go on with it later, it's not going to be there for me either.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Good
Okay.
advice.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Let's see here.
What's the best glue?
No,
You
not
went
that.
to that. You went right away. Come on, man.
Hey, it depends on what you're working on. Everybody's got a preference.
Okay, so you and I have talked about this, Conway. On your builds that you have there, the 8-inch fiberglass, Thug Smash you got behind you. What'd you build that with?
I used Aeropoxy.
Yes,
I really like their stuff. There's a couple others out there. I prefer to use products that are used in the actual aerospace industry, whether they're used for building planes or aerospace stuff. One of the big things I like that's an advantage to Aero Epoxy is the fact that if you take, like, whether it's West Systems, US Composites, and you take a quart kit and you look at the weight, in volume it's a quart, either one of them, but the Aero Epoxy weighs less.
That's crazy.
Interesting.
Okay.
and has higher bonding strength, PSI wise. The other thing I like about Aeropoxy,
Okay.
if you've never used it, man, you really don't even need to use a filler with it. That stuff is so thick, it holds shape really well. You can form it. Fillets are great for it. They do make
Differences between that and rocket epoxy, honestly.
I'm honestly not a fan of rock epoxy because I find as it ages, it gets brittle.
Brittle.
Ah. Okay.
I've heard that. Yep.
Okay. That's good. Good to know. And then you had a design for a cure oven to help, with the Aeropoxy. Can you talk about that real quick?
It's pretty simple, actually. It's just a great big cardboard box lined with aluminum foil and that like insulation silver, like blanket stuff. A light bulb, and a thermostat.
Like a heat bulb?
Pretty
like
much.
a heat bulb?
Yep.
Nice. Okay. So then once you get done with a fillet, or do you do the entire series of fillets and then put your fin can in there, or how exactly do you do that?
You can. Yeah, absolutely. Most of the times when I'm using an oven, it's because I've done laminating, and I'm going to take the laminated piece and put that laminated piece in the oven. Adding the heat actually increases its strength.
Okay.
Mm.
All right, here's another quick question. Where do you see the hobby in 5 years?
Well, knowing where it's come from, it used to be that anybody that was launching a J motor, a K motor, ooh, wow, that's a big motor, man. Golly gee. How am I going to get there? Well, I'm going to have to put like 12 or 14 G motors in a cluster. And then it finally went to where Ks and Js, everybody's doing those. And then it's like, oh no, they're doing an M motor. That's huge. And then it's become where M motors are like now like what K motors used to be. Now you don't really see an oo or an ah until you see like now an N and an O.
Right.
Honestly.
Or you see Gary Dickinson go fly something at Airfest.
I can tell you what I'd like to see. I'd like to see a return.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd like to see a return to the cool stuff that guys like Wedge Oldham did that brought the excitement. I mean, there's no publications around anymore like what there used to be. There used to be Extreme Rocketry.
Yeah.
There was Rockets Magazine. There was, I wrote articles for each one of those. I actually got featured in several. One of the greats, Daryl Mobley, had a website called Rocketry Planet. I was fortunate enough that he did a feature article on my L3. I think it's great to see publications that are, highlighting the people we have in our hobby, get information out. I miss that a lot, and I wish we had more of that. Everything has gone digital and online.
Right, yeah.
And not that that's bad, but there's something different when you can sit down.
It's not the same.
And read a magazine. Yeah. And, hey, that's me in that picture, or I took that picture, or I wrote that article, or whatever it is. Or you can go back through your stash of magazines and go, I know I read an article somewhere on how to do this.
Right, right.
There it is. I miss that stuff, and I wish those things would be back. I'd like to see further progression, outreach to youth, progression in the junior programs. I think they're vital.
Yep.
Because I think one of the things that happens is as kids, if they can't make advancements, they're going to get bored.
Yeah, you're right.
It's that way with adults even. I think maybe even not necessarily adding another level like a level 4, but adding some other challenges out there for all of us to attain that are obtainable.
It's funny that you mentioned that because Rachel Daigle and Bill Daigle were telling me that they have to have an electronic endorsement before they can even go for a car level 4. And, I kind of like the idea. And, I talked to James, a few months back about, that it almost should be a requirement to go up every impulse before you finally get to like a level 3. I'm not opposed to that idea whatsoever. I mean, it is kind of cool to go and get a level 1, level 2, level 3 on like the highest motor that you can use. Those who can get like a level 2 on an L motor, that's freaking cool. But I mean, in order for you to like get a level 3, I think you still need to like still fly a J and a K.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's just me. And, people probably won't like that I said that, but I mean, that's what I did, honestly. I mean, I went through every impulse to kind of learn it, and I got comfortable enough with it. But then, I'm sitting here on M's and I'm thinking, how did that shoot not deploy right? So it's all about learning. But it's kind of funny that you bring that up because it's baby steps that I think you need to take, for yourself.
Yeah, even if you're at mid power, like getting into level 1, there's even those F and G motors. And I'm not swearing at the motors, F and G motors. Anyway,
I see what you did there.
There's a big difference between the F and when you get to G's, and learning how to handle that on the same rocket teaches you a lot when you get into the next level when you're at the high end of an I, like an I-200 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I think Conway's going to say something.
The other things that I would like to see is I understand our hobby's not, we're somewhere probably between 8,000 and 12,000 people in the hobby.
Right.
high power flyers, there's probably leaning more towards even 8,000. So the amount of different manufacturers that we could pull from makes it difficult because there's not so many. But I do miss times where I can remember where we had Aerotech, AMW, we had Cosden, we had CTI, and we had Gorilla. And then there was Loki. All those manufacturers almost during the same period of time. And I'm not so much for just different colors and motors. I want to see different performance aspects. I really would like to see CTI was doing like their dual thrust. I miss motors like that where performance is really what you're looking for, where you get an initial kick off the pad, to help it go, and then you get the longer burn. I think Gary at Aerotech is really doing some incredible things with long burn stuff and the end burners and stuff like that, which really impresses me because it's not about the color. I also like the performance aspect of it as well too.
Good point.
Development of that. I definitely don't want to see us get away from flying APCP because first off, we all like the smell of it in the morning, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So it's one of those things that I'd like to see more involvement into the research programs and maybe more mentorships with maybe even a certification level involved in doing research stuff. I definitely dig what they've done with like the high altitude stuff where they changed it from 50,000 to 100,000 and then P impulse class before you need to worry about the high end help with what do they call it? Not level 3, but it's a high power 3 committee of where you're talking about going to high altitudes over 100K.
Like class 3. Well, it's not
class 3, exactly. Class 3 flights. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Class 3 flights. And I talked to my good friend Kevin Trojanowski, which is another one of the guys I met at the X Prize. Him and Deb, they're great people. Kevin's like head of that whole class 3 deal, and just learning about what goes into that is pretty incredible. I'd like to see more advancements and work with that.
That's a whole show right there, and I would love for us to talk about the class 3 things. That's fascinating.
Let's get Kevin on.
Electronics.
Let's do it.
I'd love to see more development in electronics. I think there's some great tracking packages out there. I use a ton of
talking CG's world now.
Yep, I use a ton of the featherweight stuff on their tracking because the features are hard to beat, man. I mean, it's like for the price. You get voice, you get lost rocket found, you get to watch others' flights, you get actually a really great tracking package. Plus, it saves data that you can actually use for contest. And it's recognized by Tripoli for altitude. I mean, I've been a long time MissileWorks user. I've known Jim Amos since he first started and like nearly almost beta tested stuff for him years ago.
Right.
But I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there and it's evolved, but I think there's more evolution coming. That would be great. Who knows? It might be you, CG.
Yeah, exactly.
Never know. Well, yes. And we're all out of time now here on the show. We could probably go on all night long, which will make it like a 5-hour podcast. But somebody's got to edit all that. So we're going to wrap it up here. We'll definitely have Conway back on, I'm sure, in the future, because there's a lot more that we can talk to him about, and you can learn a whole lot.
I definitely want to tell you guys thank you and appreciate what you guys do with your show. It's actually awesome, and I think it helps a lot of people. I know it definitely helped me while I was out with COVID.
Alrighty, once again, a great interview with Conway Stevens. That was a lot of fun. So can't wait to have
Lots
him
of
back.
stuff, man.
Yeah, lots of stuff. And it's I'm sure you're going to go back and listen to that episode like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times so you can absorb all the rich content that he's got in there.
That's one of those. Yep.
So.
And we're not done. I mean, so I've been talking to Conway about making motors. I've been talking to Conway about doing other projects. The recent thing I talked to him about was how to build an actual vacuum pump setup so that I can glass huge tubes, like 5.5 and 7.5 inch tubes, as well as huge fins, because you can't do that with a food saver, but these guys have done it with other means. And I'm like, how did I not know about this? So like, I'm learning about peel plying, about the absorption papers. This is stuff that I haven't even dabbled with. So I'm over here talking about fiberglassing all the things, and I haven't even touched the surface of what these guys have done even years ago. So this guy, Conway's got so much information, and you guys are going to learn a lot from the guy. So let's take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Yes. All righty, we're at that part of the show right now where we get to thank all the patrons that are supporting The Rocketry Show. You can go to TheRocketryShow.com I just screwed that all up. It's support.TheRocketryShow.com, and then they'll forward you over to our Patreon page where you can become a supporter of The Rocketry Show if you wish. Content is starting to go up now for the patrons as Season 8 gets started here, so now we're throwing our extra stuff up there. Starting with Jesse's addendum to our interview with our guest, Conway Stevens. So there's additional content up there, and we'll have more to come. So keep an eye out there for folks in our Patreon. Was a countdown to launch and higher levels. We'll get to see that content there. So right now, let's thank some of the patrons who've been supporting the show for quite some time in some cases. So who wants to start with our first batch here?
I could go. All right. Let's start out with Todd West. I'm going. Thanks again, Todd. Appreciate it. Jonah Chaney, Matt Tudor, and Jonah's actually an annual August 1st. So that's a year-long Patreon right there. Thank you very much. Joe Simperito, Les Rayburn, Steve Spencer, Bill Cook, Jason Cook. Hi, guys. Gary Rosenfield. Hey, Gary. Greg Ziegler, Toby Vanderbeek. Hey, Toby. Ken Blade, Eric Hamilton, John Beans, Scott Halla, Guy Wadsworth, Phil P., Tom Rum, Stephen Ray, Amanda Ho, thank you, Amanda, Steve Sainer, Mark, and, of course, the ubiquitous railbuttons.com. Thanks, guys.
Yes. Makers of fine rail buttons for your rockets on several different sizes, too. Standard, mini, and the mid-size ones. So we have, who else we have here on our list here? Oh, I'll take this one here. We've got Timothy Mock, Jeff Curtis, also Phil Bridges. Thanks a lot for your support, gang. Also, Todd West. Thank you so much, Todd, for your support. Roy Tyson as well. Rob Hoagie. R. Smith. Also, Gary Dow has been helping us out. Thanks. And Jay Pullman. Don Johnson has been helping us out as well. Thanks for your support of the show. Pierre Marlou. So Jeff Curtis, big supporter there. And Philip Calvin. Thanks for your support, Phil. And Jay Bryant, thank you for your support as well. Casey Anderson and Mark Essenwine in there as well. Thank both of you for your support of our show. We also, Jimmy Burgess of Paradise Rocketry, thank you so much. It's great when...
Thanks, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's great when rocket companies are part of the patrons as well. Scott Masters in there and Jason O'Scally. Thanks so much, gang. And we got another pile here, I guess, Jesse.
Hey, so I believe we got Brett Naoki. He's a new supporter of the podcast. So thank you, Brett, for signing up.
Cool.
Really appreciate that. George Rackor Jr. looks like we got my buddy Charlie Harnett that I talk to every day and answer questions for. Thanks, Charlie. Charlie actually does a lot of our SpeakPipe questions for us. So send in some more questions, Charlie, because we want to talk about some of that stuff. JohnRocket.com. Make sure you visit them when you can. Thank you for being a supporter, guys. Jason Rodney, Kyle Lemke, Paul Olivieri, Sam Feinberg. Thank you all very much. Kyle is also an annual supporter. Thank you for that. This episode is actually with Mr. Conway Stevens. So Conway, thank you for being a supporter. I hope we did you some justice and got to share some of your stories. Thank you so much for doing that. Mr. John Sicker, we're excited to talk to John soon. So hopefully he can get on there and, chat with us. Sean Falkingham, also annually. Thank you so much for your support with all that. Brian Shakenberger. Thank you, Brian. I get to talk to you once in a while on some of the various Facebook groups, so thanks for your participation. E. Hundell, John Thompson, Mr. John Thompson. Got to hang out with John at LDRS for a little bit. Mark McBride, Doug Wade, and C. McCauley, thank you so much. The names that you guys have always heard. And, we really do appreciate your continuous support. Carl Hunting, Chris Irving. Hey, thanks, Chris, for all the stuff that you do with your side, with the, altimeters and all that fun stuff. David Simmons. And then the Piedmont Student Launch Team. Thank you guys so much for continuing your support. And then Mr. Scott Binder with SBR Rocketry, and you can visit them at fusionrocket.biz. So they actually have a new rocket that they just released for the upcoming LDRS, so make sure you guys go check him out with that. John Kusher, Kelsey Black, Trucker Jim. Hey, Trucker Jim, Mr. Jim Wilson, thank you so much. Brian Reneker, thank you so much, Brian. And then Jerry Krause and Justin O'Neill, thank you guys so much for, all your continued support, everybody.
All right.
Anybody that we might have missed.
And if you wish to show your support for The Rocketry Show, once again, just visit us at support.TheRocketryShow.com for all the information on that. So thank you to all of our patrons who've been supporting the show. All righty.
I have more stuff coming for you guys very soon.
Yes, Jesse's loaded with a bunch of extra material for patrons. He's been kind of doing interviews whenever he's at a major rocket event. So lots of cool stuff. A lot of cool people coming up in there for our patrons and our patron page. So anyway, Conway Stevens has been a great interview, great listening to Conway Stevens. And so, yes, I just can't, I can't wait to get him on again. And he's got other projects going on. I'm trying to remember, we were talking for a while, and he's got a project he's slowly working up to. He's always has something in the pot, so we'll have to get him back on. And as you heard on the podcast that was recorded right about the September 11th area, so some of the things he was talking about doing, he's already done. So we'll definitely get him back on to talk about some of that stuff. So cool.
Ask him about the Spear of Odin.
Well, you got to remember that one. I'll forget that, so you got to remind me when we get him back on.
I'm curious now.
Soon.
The Spirit of Odin.
Oh, no. The Spear of Odin.
Spear. Oh, that's even better. The Spear of Odin.
Here's a treat.
Does it come with a magic helmet?
Well, it's Odin, man, so it might come with an eye patch. But check this out. If you guys want a little preview of what I'm talking about there, go to the Patreon episode that we just did with Conway, the preempt to this interview here, and take a look at the very, very end. There's a little treat for you talking about that, so just so y'all know.
Oh, okay. Teaser.
Yeah. So anyway,
right.
There you go. Another show in the can there. And so we will come back to you and have a lot of great stuff for you here in a couple weeks as we continue on with Season 8 of The Rocketry Show. Yes, we're in the beginnings of our 8th season here.
That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, crazy. So,
hey, guys, I just celebrated 2 years with you.
See,
do you realize that?
Do you really?
I started in
now
October 2019.
Now you see how time flies, Jesse. With this
crazy.
That wasn't so long ago.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I hope I doing you guys some justice. So.
Yes,
absolutely.
For sure. All righty, so Gene, on that note, get us on out of here.
Keep your eyes in the skies.
All righty, we'll see you next time. This has been The Rocketry Show at TheRocketryShow.com. See ya.
Have a comment? We'd love to hear it. Send them to mailbag@TheRocketryShow.com. If you enjoyed what you heard, don't forget to check out our sister show, TheModelRocketShow.com. The Model Rocket Show is hosted by the Rocket Noob and is all about low to mid-power rocketry. TheModelRocketShow.com with Daniel, the Rocket Noob. Check it out today. The views and opinions expressed on these programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Little Beth Entertainment or its sponsors.